Okay, so going into Unreal Engine, I've got a face animation here. And, you guys recorded your own face animations, and hopefully you're actually processing those with Metahuman Animator, as I showed in the previous demo. So once you get your whole animation done and you export it as an animation, you're also going to want to export the sound. And I don't think I showed that before in that other demo. I think I just showed the exporting the animation. And so when you click export animation here, it's going to send out an FBX file, or it's going to send out an animation file that you can then export as an FBX file. And um, you want to have the audio because that's not going to be in the FBX file. The audio that I have here is lined up with the animation, and you can see the lip syncing is there.
In thunder.
And so when you export that out as an animation, you can see I've got face anims here, and I've got the animations that I've exported out of the Metahuman Animator as a sequence. And I think this is the one that I was just looking at. And when I open it, it should have the same animation here, but it's not going to have the audio. The audio is not part of the animation file. So when I export this, when I right-click this, in order to export it to my other scene, how I would normally do that is I would right-click it and go to Asset Actions, and I'd export as an FBX file. And I'd save that out somewhere where I can find it so I can import it into the other scene. Normally, I would put that maybe on my desktop in my course folder or something like that. Right here. So, I've already done that. You can see that they're here. Those are the FBX files that got exported out from this, but I won't have the audio. And you can't just take the audio out of the folder of the Metahuman Animator files that I gave you as a zip on Moodle. So you use those for processing in here, but when Unreal Engine processes them, it puts them in a folder. So if I look at that, for instance, here's the ingested source files, and after you process it, you're going to get, let's see, this is Topher Thunder demo. Let's just, actually, I want this one here. This is the Topher Thunder demo. And this is the files, and this is the one that I opened right here. So it's the performance component. And so when you ingest this stuff, it comes in as this ingested source. And if you keep going into that, so this is the performance take here, and here's the actual audio, the sound wave file. But if you want that to be able to be imported as a actual wave file, a lot of times these are not, these are only usable inside of Unreal Engine, which I am going to another Unreal Engine scene. But if I want to just have it as an audio file, because I'm going to want to, the final version of it, I'm going to want to actually have in Premiere. I'm not going to be rendering out the audio because our final result for this project is an animation, but you should be rendering to frames when you render your animations. And I'm not sure everybody understands that. I've said it several times, you render to frames. There's several reasons for doing that. One is that oftentimes renders fail, and if you're rendering to frames, you can actually just start up wherever it failed and finish rendering your frames. But it's also better quality. You get a better quality final animation when you render to frames. So when you render to frames, you get no audio out of that. Even if you render to a clip, your audio probably wouldn't be right because the audio inside of Unreal Engine is not supposed to be rendered to a movie file. It's only supposed to be run in game. So oftentimes the audio will be messed up anyway if you were to render out to a movie file. So that means you need to export the audio in a way that it is just a plain wave file that you can bring in to Premiere, because that's where you're going to do your final audio or some other video editor. So this file here, to get it out of here as just a regular wave file, you right click it, just like I did with the exporting the animation, and you go to Asset Actions again, and you go to Export. So this sort of right clicking, going to Asset Actions and exporting is how you get things out of Unreal Engine to bring into other programs. There's another thing here called migrate, which is for bringing something from one Unreal Engine file to another Unreal Engine file. You could actually use that to move things around from, say, this scene that has nothing in it but my metahumans to my actual final scene. But I often like to use FBX just because it's kind of how I've always done it. And it kind of puts everything in there. But it would technically work either way. You could use migrate too. Export, however, for the audio is going to be necessary because I'm going to something other than Unreal Engine. I'm going to want to bring it into Premiere. So I'm going to export this out, and it automatically is going to send it out as a WAV file because it's a piece of audio, where the other one used an FBX because it was animation. So you have to understand that it automatically knows what type of file this is and what type of file to send out. You usually don't have to choose it or anything down here. But there could be other ones, OCG, and these are different kinds of sound files, or at least these two are. Wave is the one that on Windows is going to always work. So I use Wave. And then I want to send this out as a WAV file. And I might do it, I would probably do it to the same folder that I put the animation into. So this is going to be named the same um, as the animation file, but it's going to be a WAV file. I think it's named the same, actually. Um, I could have I could have done this before. I don't remember if I exported the audio before. Um, but I just exported that audio. And so now I have that audio that I can bring it into my other Unreal Engine scene and also bring it into Premiere. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and open up my other scene that has my animation in it. So this is my actual scene file, and it has both body animation and face animation. And I've shown the face animation before and how to put it in. But what I didn't show before was how to bake it to a control rig in order to edit it the way that I showed you how to bake the body animation to a control rig. They are completely separate control rigs. The body control rig is not the same as the face control rig. And this is all done inside a sequencer. So what I'm going to do in here, I don't know if I have a sounds folder, but I'm going to go ahead and make a sounds folder in my content, down in my content browser. Since it doesn't look like I have a sounds folder, I'll go ahead and make a new folder, call it sounds. And inside of there, I'm going to go ahead and find the file that I just exported. So I put it in here, and it should be a WAV file. And I can see that I actually do have the several audio files that I exported into here, in addition to several FBX files. And I would want to try to make sure that I'm using the right ones because I have multiple versions that are named similar. And so if I want to know which one it is I'm using, I can open up my sequence that has it in it, and I can look at the name of the one that is on the face here. So here's the character's face. That's the face track. Here's the animation that I'm using. That's the animation track. It's AS underscore Topher Thunder Demo Performance 2. And I'll go ahead and go back and look. So this is the one right here that I'm using as the FPX file, and this is the one that I just exported, I think. So it's take two, and that should be the right one, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. I see that I do have two of these, but yeah, this is the right one. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that one in. So I have a folder in my content browser for sounds. I'm going to go ahead and drag that sound in to import it. And once it's imported, I should see it in here. I could double click it to open it up. This particular sound, I'm not going to want to loop it. When you're working with a sound, the looping is actually set on the sound itself in this looping parameter, and I'm not going to check that for this one. And for now, I'm just going to leave the volume at 1, which is whatever I saved out for that particular um, track. And we'll just try this out and bring it into my sequence. So if you want to hear the audio in your sequence that I'm using right here, then you add an audio track. So if I click add here and choose audio track, I can add a sequence or a sound, and it's going to ask you, do you want to use the audio clock source? It says it's recommended to sync the audio correctly with regular time. So audio is one of those things where it can get off because of the game engine, how it runs on your machine. Like if you have a machine that's it doesn't have a lot of memory, then your audio could get off. So you don't want it to run with the sort of the game loop. You want it to run with real time. Therefore, it will always be correct in seconds when it's updating and playing the audio. So that's what it's asking here. I'm going to say yes to that. And then what I want to do, honestly, I should have brought this in when I first brought in the face animation, because I don't know if it's going to sync up with it. If I brought them in at the same time together, it should sync up because it's synced up in the Metahuman animator, and I exported the whole thing for both of them. So the lip syncing should be correct with the audio. Since I went in here and edited some of this animation, it may not be syncing up. The body animations from Natalia and Cora, actually, but I've got both in here. And then the face animation is from me, from my recording. And I don't know if I actually, if they're going to be synced up. So we'll find out. So I'm going to go to the audio here and add, and it's going to bring up choices for the audio. And I know that I want to use something that has my name on it. So I'll just type my name in. And there's the sound wave. And I'll go ahead and choose it. And it looks to me like it's about the same size as the animation. The animation's going to a little over 1200, and the audio is going to a little over 1200. So I don't think I actually did any editing on the animation of the face. I just brought it in at 0, and therefore it should sync up. And let's find out. We'll play it and we'll listen to it and see if it does. Now, one thing that I want to show you that I've set up here, it's really kind of hard to edit your animation when your character's moving a lot, because the controls for the face are always sort of sitting right beside the face. And if every frame your character's moving, it's going to be really hard for you to see the animation on the face and to edit the animation on the face. So what I've set up on this character right here I'll go ahead and make it visible, is I've set up a face cam. And it's basically a camera just pointed at the character's face. And it moves with the character so that it's always pointed at the character's face. So if I switch to the face cam in this view, and I select I've also baked to a face control rig. If I select that control rig so we can see it, which is here, then you'll see the control rig for the face. This is called a control board, and it's basically a representation of the face right next to the character's actual face. And all the controls are there. And when I move the cursor, you'll see the face moving and the controls moving. So when you first put your animation track on the face, none of these controls will be there. It's just driving the face controls directly when you do that. But when you bake to a control rig, it will create the controls and take all the animation that was directly on the face and put it on the controls so that you can see them moving around. It's actually the controls that are moving the face. That's what the baking does. And you can see that on the left-hand view here, I have the main cam, which is my main camera, and I've got it in cinematic viewport. Cinematic viewport is showing you what it would look like in game mode and also in render mode if you're doing cinematic and sequencer. And you'll notice that cinematic viewport doesn't show any of the controls. So it's really nice to have two views when you're editing the face. One view so you can see the face, and another view so you can see what the character looks like from your main camera without any of the controls showing up. And that way I can go in and I can set keys on these different face controls by doing an additive layer the way that I showed you for the body. So if I find the control board and I open it up, you'll see that there's tons of keys there. Just like there were tons of keys when I baked the body animation to a control rig. So to make it so that I could edit things on the body, I added another track that is an additive track, and it's called a section. So if I take the control board here and I hit plus, I can do an additive section for this face controls. And you'll see, actually, I'm going to undo that real quick here and just make sure that my cursor's on 0 when I do it. So I'm going to click back to front to go to 0, and then I'm going to go back to my controls and do an additive layer again. So now I have an additive layer for the face controls. So here are my Mocap face controls. I don't want to mess with those because there's a keyframe on every frame. Here's the layer that I would actually set keys on to edit my face animation. So if I open that up, you'll see that there's all the different controls. I can select them over here, and you can see that it selected something in the faceboard. Let's say I want to do something like that part right there. It's the mouth control. And let's say that I wanted to adjust that mouth control. If I move it around, you'll see that it moves the mouth around. All right. Um, so I can set keys on this. There's a tongue control. There's an upper lip raise. That's right up there. If I move that up and down, you'll see that I can adjust that one particular part of the face. So if I'm getting too much of a smile and I need to pull it down, or if I'm not getting enough, I could pull it up, and create and set a key, an individual key. That's how I would go about editing my face animation. And ideally, I have the video too of my face. So if I um, go back, I could go find that video. I think I have it when it ingests the stuff. I think that let me just go make sure that it doesn't have to be exported also. So I'm just going to look for. Yeah, this is my other Metahuman scene. Let me go find the other one here. It's probably in my class folder. Okay, here it is. So process Topher Meta is the one that I was using. I'll just go into that, go into content. I know that it was the one that says demo on it. And there's the ingested source material. And it was take two, was the performance take. And all right, there's the WAV file. So it did have a WAV file, could have just copied that. Um, here's the video. Let me see if the video's in here. So, so here's the problem. I've got a lot of different takes here, but I don't have a video file, right? I have UA asset files, and UA asset files are not usable anywhere other than in Unreal Engine. So one of these is a video file. There's a video file here somewhere. Actually, the size of these make it look like there is no video file. Maybe it is in here. Let me just check. So there is no video file unless it's in here. So what I do have is I've got individual frames. And if I look at the details of these, they're just JPEGs. So what I could do to get a video out of that is I could import these individual frames to Premiere as a sequence and export it as a movie file. And that way I would have a video of my facial performance straight on that's really a good, you can see that you can see everything. Uh, you can see everything really well in this video file. I can see exactly what my face should look like on frame 219. So if you were to bring these into Premiere as a sequence and export it as an MP4 video file, which is exactly the way we're doing our renders anyway, then you could have a video file to compare your face animation inside of Unreal Engine to what your actual face performance was. And you'll see, like, what I've done in the past is I put the video of my original face performance up on one screen, and then I have my Unreal Engine scene up on my other screen, and I can just page through my whole animation and adjust my controls here to make the face in Unreal Engine as close as possible to what my original performance was. And that can be really useful to do. And you can pretty much find each place where you need to be, like frame 300. You could find frame 300 in the other video file. In fact, we could look at it right here by just putting this on 300 and going back. It's looking a little bit to the left, and the mouth is like completely open and a grimace. I can go back to this and look at frame 300 and see if it looks like that. So it's easier to have an animation because you can sort of scrub through it, but you could just do it with these. Like I could just go to frame 300 and open it and compare that with what I have inside of Unreal Engine right there. So that is the actual face that I made at 300, and this is the version that I have in Unreal Engine. And if I want to see that better, I could like orbit around a little bit, so I'm looking a little bit straighter onto it. But that's it right there. And I can see that it's not bad. It's pretty close. There's some differences. So my eyebrows may be a little bit more angled in my original performance than here. They look kind of normal there. I probably want to try to move my controls to try to create a little bit more of an angle on my eyebrows. My eyes are maybe a little bit not quite as open. Like this eye, the right eye there is much more open. I can see especially around the teeth. Look, I can see my gums on my Metahuman character, and over here I can't see my gums at all, right, on my actual performance. Even though the shape of the mouth is somewhat close, that's too much. So there's where it would be useful for me to take this upper lip one that I already have selected here and move it down a little bit so that not so much of my gums is being shown and set a key on it. Now, like we did on the body animation, Oh, and I did want to check the lip syncing, so let's do that. Let's hit play and see what it looks like.
In thunder.
Not bad. It's actually pretty good. That's one of the things that Metahuman Animator does pretty well, is it does pretty good lip sync,
Thunder.
which is like 80% of getting a good animation. Um, if you look at student work like before MetaHuman Animator, or even a lot of professional work, the lip syncing is not very good. This actually produces lip syncing good from just the capture. Where you're really going to have to do some work is if you're trying to do something detailed where you really can see the face and you want it to be more like your performance, then you're going to have to go in there and tweak it a little bit. So it's really the expressiveness. Now, what I would do with this when I'm doing a face animation, I want some neutral keys. Because if I went in and set that upper lip key without setting any neutral keys first, then the upper lip is going to be sticking up the whole animation, right? Because it goes across the entire thing. So you need to set some neutral keys, just like I did when I did the body demo on an additive layer like this. So I would go when you do neutral keys, you go all the way to the top to the actual control board. And we probably want to rename this too, because it's named the same as the other one. Let's call it face underscore control underscore additive. So we know which one is the one that we're editing and not the one above it. And then to set a neutral key at, say, this is a pretty neutral face right here. To set a neutral key at the beginning, I would just click that keyframe for the additive layer here. And that sets a key right there at the beginning. And then I would want to probably do one at the end and in between, like anytime that it's goes back to neutral, like right there. That's a pretty good neutral face. I could set another key there. And when I'm setting these neutral keys, because I'm clicking at the very top level, it's setting keys on every single control. That way it locks those down. And when I start actually editing it to adjust, say, the upper lip or something, it's not going to propagate across the entire animation. So anywhere I think that the face looks pretty good, I could set a neutral key to lock it down in that area. And I'd have to go through with my video to check it. Now, here's something you're going to notice. See how it goes out of focus? And see these keys down here? That's me setting keys on the focus offset of this face camera that I've made. So I've set keys to fix the focus, because when you lock it to the face like this, it's not going to be in focus all the time for whatever reason, even though it should be staying, and it looks like it's staying the same distance and everything from the face. It's still going out of focus for some reason. I don't even know why, but it is. And you can fix that by setting keyframes on the focus offset. So this camera, I need to show you how I set this camera up, because you're not going to be able to do it if I don't. So the way you do this whole thing is so what I've got is I'll do another. I'm going to do another one. This one I've called main face cam. I'll call it something else, and we can stop looking. Let's just go back to regular perspective view. Uh, we'll just go back to main cam for right now. So here I'm still seeing the rig because I'm not in cinematic mode. So I can see all the controls, and I can see the controls for both the body and the face. What I want to do is if you're going to make a face cam like this, there's a couple of things you have to do. First of all, in your regular outliner, and I'm going to switch, it automatically switches me to animation mode when I start working with the face stuff. When I select it in the content browser or in the sequencer, I'm going to go back to selection mode, which is your normal everyday mode that you work in inside of Unreal Engine. And I want to make a new face cam. So I can have it there and see it moving with my character and everything. The only way you're going to do that is if you can sort of attach the camera to the character's head, because it has to move with the face. Everywhere the face moves, everywhere the head moves, the camera goes with it. So in order to attach something to a character's head, you have to have something called a socket. And you have to add the socket to the character's skeleton. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by finding the character's skeleton. So my character is called BP Topher Metahuman 2024. I can see that that's the name of my character that I'm using. The regular blueprint, which is to the right here, is not where the skeleton is. To find the skeleton of your character, you have to select it in your outliner and then go down and look in the details, and you've got to find the body. So the body is right in the details. It's like the first thing after the character's name. There's the body node. You got to find that body node and select it. And then to get to the skeleton, you've got to look down in the details with the body node selected. You're going to scroll down until you find mesh in the details. And there's going to be a skeletal mesh asset. And it's M tall, normal weight body is my skeletal asset. We've looked at these things before, and this is sort of the metahuman DNA for this particular character. I need to open that up. So below the name of the skeletal mesh asset, there will be a folder. And if you click on that folder, it will take you to where the skeletal mesh asset is. And generally, it's always going to be in your metahumans folder. And Yeah, there's just going to be a long pathway to where that is. It's not easy to find, actually. But mine's M tall, normal weight body. And I'm going to double click it to open it up. And once I get it open, it's going to show me the skeleton. It might show me the whole body too. And there's technically, I mean, you can see the skeleton, but there's also a skeletal node, a base skeleton node, which you can click into. And if you can't see the skeleton here, you can click under character, go to bones, and set it to all hierarchy. I think it's usually on selected only, which means the bones won't show up until you select them. But when you're making a socket, you're going to want to see the whole skeleton. So go in and turn on under bones, all hierarchy, so you can see the whole skeleton. And then you're going to have to find the head bone. Now you could try to select it in the 3D view like this, or you can search for it, HEAD, and it will show you where the head bone is. That's the hierarchy. What you see on the left here is the entire hierarchy for the metahuman skeleton. It's a gigantic, big hierarchy. It is hard to find things in here sometimes. The head is like buried 3/4 of the way in under the neck. And you can see that I already have a head socket added to this. The way you add a head socket is you'll find the head bone, you'll right click it, and you'll just choose add socket. And it will automatically make something sitting on top of the head bone that's called head socket. And you don't even have to rename it, just leave it head socket. Once you have a head socket, you can attach things to it. And what I'm attaching to it is the camera, and I'm also attaching a plane behind it so that it's easier to see my controls. So the head socket, you got to have it on there on the base skeleton like this, and then just save it. Just hit the save floppy disk here, and then you can close it. So once you have a socket on your head bone, then what you're going to do is create a new camera to attach to that socket. And you create cameras on it with the add button at the top. You can go to cinematic and Cinecamera actor. So I have a custom camera already in my scene. It's called main cam, and it's what I'm doing my regular camera animation with. And you guys have all done, I think, I've seen a lot of your test animations and you already have done this. This is creating another secondary camera that is going to be just for the face. And so if I choose Cinecamera actor, I can name it, I'll call this one Facecam 2. And this Facecam 2, I want to attach it to the head of my character in sequencer. So if I go to my sequence, actually, let's just make a new sequence since I have a lot of things already in that sequencer. So I'm going to make a new sequence here. You might already have a sequence with your animation and actually, no, yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. Never mind. Because I'll have to recreate all that animation. Let's just, um, let's just duplicate this sequence. So I'm going to take the sequence that I've been using and I'm just going to right click it and duplicate it. And we'll call it, put demo on the name. So it's got a different name. And then I'll double click it to open it up. My animation, everything should already be there. I'm going to just delete the um, the face camera that's here. So we'll just delete that. And I'll go ahead and delete this face plane too for now. So now all I have in this sequencer is I have I have my audio, I have my main camera cuts. Um, Actually, I don't know if I have my main camera in here. I'm going to bring my main camera in because I don't think I actually have it in here. Okay, so I brought in my main camera here and just so it's in here. And I'm going to also bring in my new face cam. So my face cam 2, which I made, is right here. So you'll notice that my face cam 1, the original face cam that I had before, is child to the Metahuman. This is if you're going to attach something to a socket, it actually needs to be child to that object. Um, and so this face cam 2, I'm going to want to drag it and you want to check it, make sure it's movable because my my metahuman is also it's animating, so it's movable as well. So you don't want to like a static thing to you can't attach a static or parent a static thing under a movable thing inside of the outliner. So it is movable here. So I'm gonna drag it on top of my BP Topher metahuman, and it is child to it now. So the Facecam 2 is now child to the metahuman. The reason you have to parent it like this is because you're going to attach it to a socket that's in the skeleton of that metahuman and it has to move with it. So it actually, to find the socket, you're going to have it part of that metahuman. So you're going to parent it. And then once you parent the camera under your Metahuman, you can drag that camera into your sequence, and it's going to come up as part of your sequence. And then once it's part of the sequence, you can attach it to the socket. So the way you attach it to the socket is you right click it, the name of it, or sorry, you don't right click it. You click on the plus sign next to the name and you choose attach, and then you choose the Metahuman. And then you're going to choose the body because that's where the socket is. And then you'll find head socket. And once you choose the head socket, you'll notice that your camera will change and it's now parented underneath the main Metahuman. Now it's not going to be in the right place. You're going to have to move it around until it's looking in the right spot for your controls. So, I would just switch to a perspective view or something and orbit around to see what it's looking at. So I'm gonna sort of zoom upward so I can see where it is. It's actually way behind the character. It's not even close to the character. And I could try to see what happens if I select it and reset its transforms, because that might pop it on top of the character. I'm going to try that and see what happens here. And it did. It actually popped that camera right on top of the character's head. So that's kind of useful because that's almost where I want it to be. And then I'll just move it out from there. So I'm going to select the face cam and I want to move it a little bit. Now it's not looking in the right direction. I think it's the Z-axis is pointed up. I'm just gonna switch to rotate and see what happens if I rotate it down. And so, yeah, if I rotate it down around 90 degrees, doesn't have to be exact. Maybe rotate a little bit this way. It clearly is not oriented correctly, so I'll rotate it this way, 90 degrees or so. And then I'll move it a little bit. Yeah, and I might want to just make sure that I bring up my controls so that I can actually see where those are, because I want to frame both the face and the controls if possible from this camera. I can see I'm in face cam 2 here. And so if I go grab the face controls, it should turn them on so I can see them. And you can hit escape to get out of that selection mode, but the controls are still there. So I'm going to go back to Facecam 2 and continue to move it around. It needs to be further away from the face. Needs to be down a little bit. Probably it's just not rotated right here. Let's just see if we can straighten it out a little bit. So it's a fine line between getting it too far away where you can't see the controls well enough, and being able to see the face too. So there I can see the face, I can see the controls. They're not super visible, but if I make that window bigger, I can probably see the controls well enough to select them. And then the other thing that I need is to focus it. So what you're going to want to do is go to the details of that camera. And the easiest way to focus a camera on a character's face is to find the focus settings on that camera. So here's the focus settings in the details. Switch it from manual to tracking, and then choose the character's name under actor to track. And you can see that I can see the face controls pretty well now, and I can see the face. And if I move my timeline so that the animation is moving, I'll see that the character's moving around, but the face controls are always visible. Now the background plane that I put in there is not moving with the character anymore because I took it out of the sequencer. So I put that there because if I hide that plane, I called it face plane. If I hide it, this is what it looks like with the controls. So it's very hard to see them. Nobody's looking at me at all. This is what it looks like with the controls. You can kind of see them, but as this character moves around, all of that's continuously change, and the outline of the character controls are black, and the controls themselves are yellow. And so it's really kind of hard to see it. That's why having something like a plane that's just neutral gray is much easier to see the outlines and the bright yellow control pieces that you would grab to keyframe. I think a neutral gray is probably the best, and one that doesn't have any shading on it at all. So to do that, you're just going to add a plane, a shapes plane, and move it and scale it until it's right behind the controls in the face like I've got here. If I turn off in my main camera view the cinematic and just put it to default, you'll see that the plane is just scaled to sit behind the character. And on the plane itself, I went into the material of it And I searched for unlit. An unlit material has no shading. And there's a gray one that's called translucent liquid. And I put that on it so that I get this unshaded, unlit gray background behind my controls and my head. Now, to make that move with your character the same way that your camera is moving with your character, you do the same thing with the plane that you did with the camera. You attach it to the socket. So you take that plane and parent it under the Metahuman, and then you drag it into your sequencer. I'll just do that. So now the face plane is in my sequencer. And then I can go to the right of the face plane and I can click the plus sign to attach it to the BP Topher Metahuman. I'll choose the body and I'll choose the head socket. Now it moved because the parenting kicks in and it basically takes the numbers that was in it before and it redoes them because now it's got a new parent, which becomes the world center for that object. Again, it might move the plane right on top of the character's head if you reset the location. And then if you also reset the rotations, it may not go to the right thing. So you may want to do that or you may not want to do that. But at least by resetting the location, it popped it over close to the character's head. I would want to move it back a little bit behind the character. And then I'd probably want to rotate it until it looks like it's more or less in the right place. And I could scale it to whatever I need it to be. So once it's behind your character and behind the controls and it's attached to the socket, then if I move this around, it should always be there. And the only thing you're going to find then is that the camera will go out of focus. And if it's this far out of focus, you're not going to be able to set any keys on those controls. They're just a blur. So where you're going to be able to focus that, like find some places where it is in focus. Like if I go to the beginning, it's all in focus right there. And then go find that camera, go into the focus settings again, and you're going to want to look for focus offset. It's keyframeable, which means that if it's focused right here and I set a key on it, it will come up, that channel will come up in the sequencer. As soon as I set a key on it, you'll see a new channel for focus offset and you'll see the key. So then I can just go to and set neutral keys where the face is focused, like it's looked good there too. So I'll click the keyframe button for focus offset and set another key. And then I'll go to where it looks not focused. Like here, yeah, I guess it's still focused. Let's find one that's really out of focus. So right there, it's unusable. It's so badly focused. So let's go before that where it is focused and set another neutral key. And then I'm going to go forward to where it's fully out of focus. And I'm going to adjust that offset. So I find that if you move it to the negative numbers far enough, at some point, it goes into focus. Maybe it's not negative numbers on this camera. Maybe it's positive numbers. Hopefully you'll see some focus. There it is. Right there. Now it's focused. It's like 93. I don't know why. I'm going to just hit the keyframe button. So if I go back, the keys that were in focus are still in focus. There's still another one there that's way out of focus. So again, I could move this around, get it back to where it's focused, right there, key it again. So this is how I would go through and fix the focus on the camera. I mean, maybe if you don't need to set any keys on it, won't matter, but if you do need to set keys, you're going to have it focused. So now I have a face cam with the background there, and if I put my cinematic viewport back on the main cam, switch it back to main cam and switch it to cinematic. Then I should be able to see the character moving without any controls on the left. I can see what it looks like for the main animation, and then I can see the face controls on the right.
In thunder.
So when I play it in sequencer, it actually switches it over to cinematic in the camera, and you don't see the controls anymore. But when you're scrubbing it, you can see the controls. So when you can set your keyframes. This is how you do face animation. Let's just go ahead and save that. Okay, so I want to see some face animation for next week. Hopefully you have some recorded, and this is how you can make it as good as possible by editing the keyframes. The other thing that I wanted to mention or put on video for you. Some of you are using fire and you're not going to have or you can make the fire look better if you put a flicker on your light. So I'm going to close this scene and instead I'll open up a different scene that has a flicker already on one of the lights. So let's see, my Macbeth scene, for instance. I have some flickers on the lights in there. So to do a flickering light, you're going to want to use a blueprint. And a blueprint is a way of coding inside of Unreal Engine. It's a simple blueprint, and you could Google this on YouTube also, how to do a flickering light with blueprints. There's YouTube tutorials on that. But let me just find one here. This is a pretty big scene, so it's lagging a little bit. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I have some materials here that are for a light flicker. And if I open it up, the blueprint looks like this. So it's a series of nodes that are connected. And this is how you create a flickering light using the logics of these math nodes. Most of them are math nodes and scalar parameters. So it's fairly simple to actually do this. You just have to copy this this setup. And if I was going to make a new one, for instance, what I would do is I'd right click, make a materials folder, because this is actually a material. You right click and you create a new material. So you just want to find material, and you're going to create a regular material and just call it something like fire flicker or firelight flicker or something. Let's just call this one flyer flicker demo. And it's a material. And it's actually going to be a light function. Actually, let's make it shorter. MLF for material light function underscore. So when you double click to open this, it's going to take you into the graph and you're going to get sort of a standard material node. But what you want to do on the left-hand side where the details are is you want to switch that to a light function. So the material domain is going to switch to a light function. And when you do that, it'll change this node to mainly only have an emissive color because that's what the light is going to be. It's going to, it's a function. A function is a a procedure. It's a series of coded nodes that will do something on the light. And in this case, it's going to affect how the light amount is put out. And it's going to cause, because of a math sort of wave function, it's going to create what looks like a flicker. And so to do this, you're going to want to add the nodes to the left of this and then hook it into this emissive color right here. And you'll start with a time node. Right click any empty area to the left of the material parameters, and then type in time. It'll be red. So red means an event. And in this case, the event is time. And out of that, you're going to have a multiply node and then a sign node. So I'll just pull out of the pin here. This is the way blueprints work. We haven't really talked about them in here before, much at all. So, you pull out of the white pin and then you just start to type in multiply, and you're going to find under the math function multiply. You do want it to go into the A pin. The B pin has a static number in it, but you're actually going to want a parameter in there. So just type in param, and actually if you could type in scalar, because what I really want is a scalar parameter. And a scalar parameter is kind of like a decimal amount that's going to pump numbers into this. And it just allows you to, it's going to come up in the light as something that you can change. Rather than it just be a set amount in the multiply divide node, because you might want to change how it flickers for different fire, or like a torch might be different than a bonfire or something like that. So you might start with a 1 value for this, and that's going to it's going to multiply that by the multiply node. So time is coming into one side and the number is coming into the other side. And then it's going to go into a sign node. So just pull out, type in sign. You'll find it there. A sign is actually a wave. And that's why this looks like a flicker, because the light's going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's the sign which is actually going to make that look like a flicker. Now, it's the shape of the sign is going to determine what that flicker is going to look like. And then there's some other nodes here that will shape that. So a fractal node and then an add node is what you want next. So type in fract. If it's not coming up, actually I want frac. And then I want, I don't know why they're chopping the name off like that, but, and then I want I think it was the add node. And again, this one's going into the A, but then there's a set amount down here. Again, this is going to determine how low the thing flickers. So in this case, it's going to go down to 0.5, which means it's not going to go all the way to black. And that's going to be the lowest brightness. So we'll do another scalar parameter coming out of there. And we'll name it lowest brightness. So you kind of know what it's doing. And we'll put the 0.5 in there. This parameter over here, I forgot to name. I'm going to name it flicker time. So this is how fast it's going to flicker. And then we can pump all of that into the emissive color and hit save. And you can see it flickering as soon as you connect it in. And you can adjust things on it. You can try different things. If I put it up to 5, it flickers really fast. If I put it down to 0.5, it flickers very slow. 1 is going to create just a sort of a medium speed flicker. If I want it to go darker, I could put this number lower. Let's say I put it down to 0.1. Now you can really notice the flicker because it's going all the way almost to black. I could put it up to 0.8. 0.8. And then you won't notice the flicker much at all. So 5 is about halfway. 1, you hardly notice anything. So you can play with these numbers. But I do think that these particular values that I'm using here look pretty good on a fire. So I'll go ahead and save that. And then the way you apply it is if you're in your scene and you pull out, you create a light. So let's just create, it doesn't matter what kind of light it is. Under your plus symbol, you can choose lights. And you could choose a point light. If it's something like a fire, I would use a point light. But you could do it with a spot too, or any of these other kinds of lights. I'm going to use a point light. And I want to, I'll move it down close to the ground so we can see something. And I'm going to change the color of it to be more like orange, kind of like what you would want for fire. And then what I'm going to do is go down into that light's details, and I'm going to find where it says light function material. And that's where I plug in my light function. So I have it right here. I can go ahead and drag it over and drop it on it. And if I, you can kind of, you can see it in this view over here. I actually need to turn on some kind of sequencer in order for that view to update. So I'm going to open up a camera sequence. And now you can see the light flickering with the one that I have created. So if you're doing fire and you want it to look a little bit more immersive, a little bit more realistic, then on the lights, add a light for your fire and then add a light function, a material light function in this way to add the flickering to it. Okay, so we'll just close this, and I don't want to save it. And I'll go ahead and stop recording.